Welcome to Castle of Horror, the show dedicated to horror movies and awesomeness. This week, we have a standalone episode, a look at Maxi Contenti's new film, The Last Matinee. This is Castle of Horror episode 345. Bear in mind, if you haven't seen today's movie, we're going to be talking about it from the perspective of horror fans who have seen it. So warning, spoilers ahead. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, publisher at Castlebridge Media. With me from Austin is Tony Savaggio, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, Mr. Drew Edwards is the writer-creator of the long-running underground comic Halloween Man, currently published by Comixology. He is a Best Writer Ringo nominee, Austin Chronicle Best of Austin Award winner, and a member of the Pan American Fellowship. Say hello, Drew.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome back. Welcome back. And finally, also in Denver, color commentary from the one and only Julia Guzman of Guzman Immigration of Denver. Say hello.
Hello. I love the name Maxi Contenti. It's like maximum contentedness.
Isn't it nice?
That's great.
It's nice. He was a nice guy. Tony has a history with him.
Yeah, he's super nice.
I got to say this right up front. If you listen to this show, and if you've ever listened to this show before, we begin with music that is by our good friend Tony Savaggio, cast member, and it is from him and his band Deserts of Mars. It's a song called Send More Gasoline. The video for Send More Gasoline was directed by the director of this movie. It was just a big, strange coincidence that we land on this.
Well, yeah, because you said, "Hey, I'm going to watch this movie," and I just wrote you and said, "Hey, Jason, did you know that he made this video?" Because we met at Fantastic Fest. So I guess this is full disclosure. Like, this is somebody we know, or I know, and we hit it off. A friend of mine, Holly, who passed away, actually, was like, "Hey, Tony, you need to meet this director. He's super cool." And we talked music, and I gave him a CD and was like, "Hey man, like I dig what you do, and here's some music, and listen to it when you're traveling." And he wrote me later and was like, "Hey, I filmed some kind of some footage. It would be perfect when I was traveling. It'd be perfect would you be cool with making this video?" And I went, "Yeah, well, I dig what you do. If you want to make a video, that's awesome."
Yeah.
And then a while later, he sends it to me. "Hey, what do you think?" And it's cool.
No, it's great.
Just a really nice guy, really cool person. So again, I think one of the major themes of the show is, hey, let's support more cool people doing cool stuff, and he is that. And I like this movie. Although I will say, watching it was like, oh, I don't think this is a Julia movie, but we'll see.
You were right about that. I will say something funny and random about the director thing. It's just another little funny thing, is that the director of the movie that they're screening, it plays the killer in this movie.
That's cool. Huh. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's right.
Come Ojos, the eye eater, Ricardo Islas, is the director of Frankenstein: Day of the Beast, which is a movie I've never seen, by the way. Although I feel like I've seen it all. No disrespect to this movie, but I feel
we did watch a lot of it. It's true.
But spoilers on all of that, though. I guess we should
spoilers ahead, not only for The Last Matinee, but we may very well spoil an awful lot of Frankenstein: Day of the Beast. And if you watch this movie, you will as well. So fair warning about that. Which reminds me, Julia was asking, and let's throw them out as we think of them as we go through, but horror movies where people are watching other horror movies. The only one that popped into my head outside of Halloween, because they're watching some stuff in Halloween, is The Blob, where they're watching a horror movie I think it's called Daughter of Blood or something. And that's a great picture that you can find on YouTube. But if you can think of others, feel free.
Well, there is of course Scream, where they're watching Halloween.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Wild.
Doesn't Demons?
Oh yeah, Demons.
Yeah. And then there's a couple of other Italian movies where they go back and forth, but Demons is the one that sticks with me.
Yeah, the funny thing about Demons is I interviewed Maxi Contenti, the director of this movie, and I said, this movie looks a lot to me like Umberto Bava's Demons. And he goes, oh yeah, no, Demons was literally their visual reference.
Of course.
Yeah.
I mean, if he said I've never seen demons, I would say that's a lie. But no, I mean you take the things that you like and you change them and
Absolutely
assimilate them and make them cool. I have no problem with that either.
Yeah. So, all right, what this movie is, The Last Matinee. In it, an audience attending the last showing of a horror film, late night showing in a small downtown cinema, are terrorized by a murderer who begins to pick them off one by one. And the first person to notice that something strange is going on is the projectionist daughter, who has stuck around to man the projector and send her ailing father home. The film takes place in 1993. It is really striking to look at. Let's get our opening thoughts. Let's go. Let's take the same order we did last time, because Tony, you had the connection with Mr. Contenti. We'll go Tony, Julia, Drew, and then I'll go if there's anything left. So opening thoughts, Last Matinee, Tony.
Oh, I really like it. It's always one of those things where if you do know somebody and you're friends with them, we all perceive art in different ways. So I'm sure I have friends who have zero interest in listening to Deserts of Mars, right? Or maybe listen to this podcast or reading, and that's fine. They're your friends. You don't have to, and they can support you as well and not like a thing. So it's really great. I like his work. I like Maxi Contenti's work, and that's how we were introduced, right? So, but there's always a chance, that you're gonna not enjoy someone's art, and it's always nice when you're like, yeah, okay, cool, you're doing the things I dig. It's something I found interesting is, I think you're totally right when you were talking before that it has the trappings and visual style of giallo, but it is a slasher movie.
Yeah.
And what I found interesting, even though you kind of told me why it was set in 93, was more of a personal, hey, I went to this theater in 93 from the director. But what it is, what struck me, and again, this is how you perceive art, it's looks like a giallo, but the gore and practical effects and how it plays out slasher wise is the gore and practical effects from a 90s movie.
Oh, really?
To me.
Now, tell me more about that.
So set in
why
93.
Is that? You're talking about the gloppiness of it, or what?
Well, just how much gore. Like, you normally wouldn't see the amount of gore and attention to that gore in a 70s giallo. Like, there's a lot of slashing and such, but the zoom in, now, I mean, there's gore in all of them, but the way this, and again, could be, somebody else could argue like, oh no, well, in this movie you see more of this, but to me, since it's a slasher with, again, the visual style of giallo, and it's not even like an homage in the same way that In Fabric is. And it's great. I mean, it's great because of it. But the thing I took away was, it just reminded me a lot of the, hyper gore from the late 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Where we kind of got more and more, and people were building up the practical effects before CG kind of took over some of that. And I thought that was interesting, having it set in 93.
That's cool.
And that's how I looked at it. I was like, oh, well, it's the 90s. It's got a lot of the 90s gore, late 80s, early 90s gore with the visual style of, person with gloves and all that, like how it's shot. But it was that marriage of the two that made it interesting. Oh, it's set in 93. Oh, that's kind of clever. Whether it was meant to be or not, that whether that was a idea in the head of the director or not, when he was pulling it all together, that's how I kind of perceived it.
It's very funny also to think that, and when I interviewed him, I said, there's 93, that's basically just about 30 years ago. So why would you choose to put this movie? Why 30? Why not 10? Why not 40? Like, what? Like, nobody makes movies that take place in the early 90s. That's really interesting to me. But okay, let's move on. Julia, what about you? What are your opening thoughts?
Well, I mean, Tony's right. I'm not a slasher film person, so I definitely looked away a lot. Did the whole watching through my fingers thing. I'm like, nope, 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 nope. Like, but but I did think there was some interesting stuff. I love that it was in Spanish. That is my jam because I don't have to actually read captions because I speak Spanish. So it's like kind of fun to watch a foreign film and understand it as opposed to so many foreign films where I'm just like, what did they say? Whack it up. I missed the caption. But it's a good looking film. It's a really interesting idea that all this is happening while they're watching a horror movie in a theater. I found it hard to believe that nobody notices that these murders are happening around them and that nobody screams ever, because it's not like he's cutting their throats every time. A lot of times he's just stabbing them. It seems like they would yell out or something. But anyway, things like that kind of irked me. But but yeah, it's suspenseful for sure. And there's some, like I say, some nice looking and some nice looking bits and some and creative thoughts, some creative ideas.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Drew, what about you?
I had a good time with this movie. I like gore, so this was especially like practical gore because I'm a Friday the 13th fan, and I feel like there was quite a bit of Friday the 13th in this movie's DNA. Particularly some of the kills had the sort of comic booky quality. I hate that term, but sometimes you got to use that shorthand. But they had that quality that some of the Friday the 13th movies have, where it's so excessive it becomes comical, and this movie definitely had it. Not an easy movie for people that has issues with anything to do with eyeballs. In fact, when Jamie was out running errands when I was watching this, and she came back and she was like, "Oh, do you think I would have liked it?" And she doesn't like anything where a movie deals with eyeballs.
Really?
She's like, nope, I'm out. And this movie, of course, has a lot of that, and I definitely think that would have wigged her out. Interesting, with Tony's talking about the comparison to like earlier European horror films versus kind of where the genre ended up. I do think it's interesting that even though it's kind of doing the over the top kills of like late 80s and into early 90s horror films, like the slasher himself, he's not like a post Jason, post Freddy kind of slasher where he's an elevated sort of supernatural figure. He's still kind of the Eurotrash grindhouse, grungy, mortal sort of. When we did what is the old slasher that we did last year with the driller killer?
Slumber
Party Massacre. Yeah, he's very much in that mold where he's just kind of a greasy guy, which I think worked for this. I think it made it, like scarier in for what it was trying to be, which is like, you're in this place that you feel safe, which is a movie theater, and then there's this chaotic thing and that's let loose. But I had a good time, and some of the shots in this are beautiful. Like even some of the shots that are grotesque are beautiful because of the way it's shot. Like there's a spoilers, but there's a thing towards the end where there's all these eyeballs falling down staircase, and that shot is like, it's oddly very pretty, which is like a strange thing to say, but
well, who doesn't want a Battleship Potemkin style shot? Except it's eyeballs.
A whole bunch of wet eyeballs just tumbling down these stairs like they're running away. It was that was an amazing shot. That was a really bonkers.
That poor kid is going to be traumatized forever. I'm really thinking the kid is going to turn out to be a serial killer himself after this. I think it's like Dexter, or Born in Blood, or whatever it was.
My last final thought and is that I found myself curious because this movie that they're watching, it appeared to be a double feature with a dinosaur movie. And since the Frankenstein movie is a real movie, I'm like, is the dinosaur movie a real movie, or is it just a poster that they made to kind of make a reference to Jurassic Park which was, of course, coming out and during this time period.
It's a good question, because they've also got a poster for something called something like Police Cop, and I couldn't tell if it was intended to literally be just a Spanish language poster of RoboCop or just a funny parody of RoboCop. They've also got a poster of Opera by Dario Argento,
which ties into the name. I mean, the theater is called the Opera.
Theater's called the Opera. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I thought of another one where people in a horror movie are watching a horror movie, and it's Targets. Targets is actually a lot like this movie. Because in Targets, again, the serial killer is just a normal Joe who's kind of gone off his rocker, and it takes a good darn long time for the people in that audience to realize that there's a serial killer picking them off. So, all right, let's get into it. First, I just want to start out with the setting, which as Tony mentioned, is 1993 in Montevideo, in Uruguay. But what strikes me is that, presuming that this is a pretty accurate reflection of a big Uruguayan city in 93, basically being a teenager or going to the movies in 93 in Uruguay appears to be pretty much the same as if you were doing that in Dallas, Texas, or anywhere else.
Well, I think in large cities it is. I mean, especially if you're a horror kid.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely fascinated by the similarities between different countries or different areas, and the differences and similarities were obviously, and that's what I like. That's another reason why I like Fantastic Fest, is like when you meet somebody and you go, oh, well, I used to go to the movies here. Oh, I did that too. Like that shared experience. Or, I've seen a couple movies like where something's slightly different, but there's like New Kids Nitro and New Kids Turbo, which are like can be kind of offensive, but they show what European kind of white trash stereotypes, like Beavis and Butthead kind of white trash stereotypes. And you're like, oh, I know these people. Like I lived in a trailer park.
Yeah,
and they're not in a trailer park in those movies. Like seeing. Like, oh, okay, yeah. These are all of our shared experiences. I think the difference in those are that they listen to techno instead of like country and AC/DC. But because I knew the Deep South Mississippi versions of the characters in those movies. But I'm endlessly fascinated at the touchstones, like you mentioned, of our youth, of, hey, if you're a horror kid, things are going to be different, but the similarities in that
not by much.
Are great.
It's an old theater, it's a big theater, but it's not one of our new stadium seating theaters that came around just about 5 years after this. It's an old downtown gorgeous movie house, very steep
too.
with a balcony, big old theater. Not very many people watching, because whatever night of the week this is, there's a Frankenstein movie playing. There's one screen. Just to get the lay of the land, the theater's not very big. Has one screen, and it appears to be inside of a sort of, it's on a city street, and inside there are a couple of other businesses, like there's a haircutter place and stuff like that are closed because it's late. This seems to be like the 10 p.m. show or whatever. And and when you shut the big metal door at the end of the evening until it opens up the next day, that shuts off everything in there. But right now the place is open, and and the first person that we meet, well, the first person we spend any real time with anyway, is Anna, who is this young lady, like she's a college student, and she comes in to relieve her dad, who is the projectionist at this theater and has been the projectionist for all of Anna's life. So, and they spend some time just sort of setting up. This girl knows how to run a theater, knows how to run the projection thing, knows how to read her dad the riot act and tell him to go home because he's not feeling very well, and yada yada. And I like this character. I mean, Julia, didn't you find? Yeah, this is also the first time we get to hear the beautiful Spanish that's being spoken by these characters.
Yeah, no, I like the family relationship, and I like the both of the characters. I thought, that it was funny that he's like, okay, yeah, I've already taught you everything, so it's cool. And like, no, there's no like formal training, but yeah, poor guy. I mean, he works like what did he say, like 24 hours in a row or something crazy? It's
Well,
like, no,
10
you need to.
hours. She says, you can't work a 10-hour shift with,
Yeah,
because he's
especially with
sick.
that cough. Yeah,
He's
exactly.
got the cough. He's had at least
She's a good
one
kid.
collapse. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, we also meet Mauricio, who is the mustachioed, manager of this place, whose job it is to wander around the theater trying to enforce the rules, but half-heartedly because nobody gives a shit. I mean, and with him wandering around, that's when you get to meet the cast of characters that are going to be in this movie. You've got this grumpy old man who leaves before he manages to get killed. He gets up and leaves because he can't
The
stand
smartest guy in this movie by accident.
Yeah.
Yes.
He was so funny. I kept saying, like, whenever he'd complain, I'd be like, dude, you didn't even pay to be here. Just shut the hell up.
Right.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's more than likely he seems homeless when he's not in the theater.
Yes.
So he's
Yeah.
Well,
So
By
this
the
is
way,
the
he's
before we
pretty
go,
well kept if that's the case, though, because he's in good shape.
Yeah.
but
who
before
can
we
say?
get into it, if you want to, by the way, if you want shorthand for how to introduce a truly despicable character,
Yeah.
have your character reach into a pickle jar
Oh yeah.
with bare hands and just kind of slosh things around. If you want, that's gross. Like pickled eggs, pickled anything. Just have that, what's going on from the time you introduce
Yeah.
this
Good
guy.
point. We
Like,
should
oh,
mention
this person's gross. Like,
before we meet
that's
all
such a good
those other
shorthand.
people. Yeah, because I mean, think about that, Tony. When's the last time you opened any jar of vinegar and just stuck your hand into the and just like, and then he takes out whatever it is he takes out. I don't know if they're eyeballs yet. They might just be olives.
Well,
But he
we
takes one out, and then he just kind of like,
see.
We don't know yet, but
kind of like
whatever.
slings his
Anyway,
hand
yeah.
to just sling the extra vinegar off his.
Like
We
all of
know
that.
he is a slovenly person
Oh my God.
of dubious hygiene.
Yes.
Yeah.
Holy
But he does
mackerel.
keep a fresh pair of gloves because that's what you do as a slasher.
Yeah,
Like, that's
it's like
your
it's
trade.
like he's going to. It's like that's what's crazy. We don't learn much about this guy, but it's like he is starting his shift the same way everybody else is. Because he just parks his car. It's raining. The director said that the rain was real, but it's punched up with CG just to make it just seem like relentless and just this horrible, constant rain. But there's no CG in any of the violence, for what it's worth. He said the CG was used for things like the smoke and in the smoke stuff of the rain and the smoke. But once you're in the theater, every gloppy hydraulic piece of gore is just all practical stuff.
Yeah, that's
Old
pretty evident,
school.
and it looks amazingly terrible. Like,
Well,
it
it's gonna
does
look good
everything
for
it's supposed
the rest.
to do.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I interrupted.
No, it just does everything like that stuff. Again, that's why it feels of its time in a way that's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
And it really, and also I see from time to time, I'll see something where it is very much like, am I shocking you? Am I shocking you?
Yeah.
This also never had that feel to me because of what it's, the homage that it is.
Yeah.
It stays just under that, and it becomes more of the slasher movie thing where you go, oh, did that kill from that one movie, and then it's doing this, and that's not always easy to do, and I thought that was really, really awesome.
Yeah. So we met Anna. We met the old man who's like, I'm sick of listening to you people talking, and he leaves. You got a little kid who is basically
Sneaking around.
just sneaking around. His name's Tomas, and he's sneaking around so he can basically just hang out and watch horror movies. And he's a sweet kid. He's afraid of the scary movies. But what a great experience, right? I mean, up until people start getting killed. I mean, but the evening he's having is actually pretty neat because he's getting to hang out and there's literally like 10 people in this theater. It's a very underpopulated showing of this movie. You've got these three teenagers who have been drinking this like cheap ass bottle of vodka and now have come in to watch a scary movie. They took the bus, and one of their buddies saw this really hot girl that he calls Brooke Shields. And so when she comes into the theater, he's going to make his way down and see if he can talk to her. And then you got, who else do you have? You have this
You have
couple.
they're the newly dating couple, and
Right.
yes. that is they have an
awesome.
interesting date. Not even beginning with the fact that there's a serial killer in the theater, like she well, I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Everybody keeps saying his pants are stained, and it's not the blood on his ass cheek that he thinks they're referring to.
Yes.
The guy I kind of termed not Brandon Ralph, because there's shocking. I thought there was a kind of a similarity to their look, but
is that character named Maria Julia? Is that Yuli Aramburu? Anyway, this guy has gone on his first date. We don't know how exactly he met this girl and asked her on a date, but it's his first date with her. They don't know one another all that well. You can't tell if anything that she says is true or bullshit, because she says the most random stuff, like, oh, I just remembered there was a party, but it's after the movie. Like, like maybe she's gonna leave, but then it's very difficult to tell. Like,
well, what it looks like, is many a dorky guy has been through. You're on a date, and then the girl you're dating isn't necessarily into you, and she says, "Oh, I just remembered I had this and this."
But then she's like, "But before I go."
Yeah.
Right.
Here's some heavy petting to get you through the night, if you know what
something.
I mean. And I think you do.
A friendly handshake before I leave.
Yes, she's the happy ending.
Yep. She's a great. I love this actress, like, because she's, with not a lot of dialogue, she's able to convey so much as far as like her, just how way out of this guy's league she is, her extreme cool, her habitual.
Well, apparently she is not completely out of this guy's league.
No, that's true. Yeah, from a certain perspective,
well, she's kind of awful.
Fine. Yeah, she is awful. I mean, I think it's, she does so. You're right, though. She does so well with the on a lark, I'll go out with this. He's kind of cute. He's dorky, but then immediately like you get the impression that normally she would, because she knows that she looks good.
Yes.
She knows how this normally is going to go. Hey, I'm going to go out. We're going to make out. We're going to, this is how this goes. And he's like, horror movies, neat.
Yes.
And I can empathize with this guy. Like, I was not a great, I don't know. My dating life was not super awesome for like this, like especially college.
My dating life was never this awesome. It's
but
I'm shaking my head at you right now.
Okay. But
this is not any of our business, you two. Okay.
No, I mean, we don't need to know about his dating life with anybody who isn't me, and we've already talked about our dating.
This actress, by the way, is named Patricia Porcio, and the funny thing is, this is a complete character, because she's really, there's a lot of pictures of her, and as with any actress, she has a lot of different looks, and so most of them she looks like really like freshly scrubbed and sweet looking, and not this sort of like ultra sophisticated character that she's playing here.
But yeah, she is great though. Because she conveys so much. Like, I'm gonna smoke in the theater. Oh yeah, you can't tell me not to.
And you can't tell me not to.
That's why I think she's horrible. I was like, you know how like when you watch horror movies, your any sense of ethics and morals that you have in real life just goes out the window. So you're like, that person needs to die.
Right.
I was like, yeah, she needs to be the first victim right there. Anyway.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this date that they're on, though, it's not even that he's like, yay, horror movies. It's that he goes to a movie and just buys a ticket at random.
Yeah. It was poor planning on his part.
Yes.
Regardless.
I would argue that it worked out okay for him.
Well, up until
he did die.
Up until if you're gonna go,
the murder, yeah. Aside from the, other than that, Mrs. Lincoln.
do we count the murder? Okay, so do we count the murder as part of the date?
Yes, it was a horrible decision all around.
It does not. The date doesn't end well, regardless of if he thinks it is ending
Happy
well.
ending notwithstanding, the date did not end well.
The middle part of the date is great for him anyway, but
up to a point.
I mean, is it though? You know what? Is it? Because like the fact is, he looks pretty. Like he looks at her afterwards and kind of goes like, "What the hell was that?" Like he's mortified that now.
Yeah, I was a little offended. Honestly, I was offended for her that he was so like. Kind of like judgy, like
but think about it. I mean, he didn't invite that. Like, if it was reversed, if it was a guy doing that to a woman, you wouldn't immediately be like, "Oh, that worked out." She does ask for consent.
She does ask for consent.
Does she?
She starts the hand job and she says, "Do you want me to stop?"
Oh, okay.
And he says no. So
and he does look in the mirror in the bathroom right before he gets killed and says, "Oh wow, she likes me.
She likes me."
Oh, you're right. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
So
yeah,
up until the point
corrected.
where he's drowned in a gross movie theater toilet. He is things are going okay.
He's like one of the first people to get killed, and I felt that one thing I thought was interesting is not only are these kills gory, but they're fairly lingering. And that is very, to me, like the Giallo stuff, is that the characters don't scream or anything, and this isn't Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but you still have a fair amount of like fear and scrambling and trying to get away and stuff like that, which is always difficult for me to watch. That's to me that's the toughest stuff about these.
One of the things about a lot of these kind of movies, not necessarily movies where you have a supernatural killer or a monster who can obviously overpower a person, but it always perplexes me a little bit that up until like the last part of the movie where you have the sort of final girl character, like you never really have characters that fight back much. And I feel like this guy he had a brief window where he might have been able to do something about his demise. And he doesn't struggle quite enough. But
no, you're right.
That's, I guess, ultimately neither here nor there, because these movies are built on a formula, and the formula is the final girl.
The formula is that the people need to get killed, and so they can't fight back very much. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't know. I can't. I don't have much explanation for that, because when the girl gets stabbed. Because this is when our guy starts killing people, and you don't know early on what exactly he's doing to these people after he kills them, but he's just killing them with a fairly small knife that he uses, a dagger that he just uses just to knife them in the chest.
Well, with the exception of the kissing couple, which he kills with some what looks like a poker from
so that's interesting. You have that couple, so they what is that actor's name or the character's name? I'm trying to remember. Anyway, it's the most it's the most attractive of the three teenagers, and he's in love with the girl called Brooke Shields. And so he goes down to talk to her, and he actually kills it. I mean, he's perfect. He jokes, he's self-deprecating, but also he teases. It's a good conversation. He does a good job, and he closes the deal because she does actually kiss him. So this is perfect, except that you have a serial killer in the theater who has gone and closed the metal gate on the theater so that nobody can get out. And for the listener, if you haven't seen it, it's like, you go to the food court and, in front of the yogurt shop, there's a big metal gate that you close and the whole thing's closed, right? It's that thing. Sometimes those are see-through and they're just chain link, but this one is like full metal. And then the killer breaks off the long metal rod that you use to roll the gate up or down. And that's what he uses to go back into the theater.
Right.
And this almost feels like a Friday the 13th thing.
This is the most Friday the 13th-esque kill in the whole thing.
Yeah.
It is so over the top.
Want to describe it, Drew? Go ahead. Because it's the most Jason-like thing in the whole thing. Yeah.
so you have this. It's what is actually quite a tender moment. Is these two hit it off and they start kissing, and then the killer comes up and he puts this metal rod through the back of the girl's head. It comes through her mouth into the boy's mouth and out the back of his head, and they're sort of stuck in this like permanent like Valentine's kiss. And it's very over the top, like in the way that a Friday the 13th kill would be. Like it's just ridiculous. And wonderful, really, because like as somebody who's into that kind of like makeup effects, and you don't really get to see that kind of thing very much anymore. I was just like, wow, like, and honestly, like I kind of have a thought on how they did it, but like I did for a minute go like, how did they do that? Because like, which is kind of why I like watching, splatter movies, is because I do always have that lingering question of like, how do they go about doing these things that they do? And this was a very impressive, like, whether or not you like gore or not, and I'm not gonna try and talk Julia into suddenly becoming a gore hound, but like, I as a special effect, it's just really well done.
Yeah, well, all the gore in this, again, I was also watching going, I think I know. I don't know, Jason, did you really want to subject Julia to this? But it's, all of it does have that, it's why you read Fangoria or any, those publications, and why you were like, oh, I can't believe that they did this. It has that.
I'd like to know the steps here, because the final step where they're just stuck together is the easiest one. It's Steve Martin style, headdress that they're both wearing that has,
or it could be mannequins with the head, like a thing through it.
Yeah, right. They could be fake heads with a thing poked through it. That's totally true.
Drew, too bad we couldn't ask, since we both watched Friday the 13th last night, we couldn't ask Shelley from part 3 how this is done. How's it done, Shelley, from Friday the 13th part 3?
R.I.P. Shelley.
Was he the makeup effects dude?
He is. Also
makeup effects prankster and hockey mask delivery system.
Yeah, he's
That's
the reason
funny.
Jason has a hockey mask is Shelley, who for
There's
some
a
reason
character
has
like
decided
that.
to wear a hockey mask under the water, instead of a mask and snorkel, which still, like, in retrospect, like, what? But that's how it is.
Wow,
But
that's
yes,
really interesting.
we have Shelley, the awkward horror movie obsessed fan, to thank for Jason's hockey mask.
But I mean,
which I'd forgotten until we rewatched it last night.
But Jason Voorhees really likes that mask. I mean, so it's interesting that once he's got it, he's like, boy, this is the thing for me.
Well, not to turn this into a Friday the 13th mini podcast, but it's up until part 3, Jason didn't really have a very consistent, it's interesting to me about those first two is that you really didn't have Jason as we think of him until like not even really in the third movie, like the last half of the third movie, but it's not really until the fourth movie that you have Jason that as we know him. Right, as a pop culture figure.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, he's a burlap sack wearing hillbilly in number 2. But it is interesting though that he keeps that mask. So anyway, and by the way, Summer School. I don't know if you remember, but in Summer School, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, you have this wacky couple of dudes who are really
Chainsaw.
Such great characters. I love them.
They were hilarious.
Yeah. I will watch Summer School any day. I mean, that's one of those movies that I'll be like, so I could watch it tonight after we get done. I could like put on Summer School. It's one of my all-time favorites. But anyway, okay. So the big thing, the use of gloppy coagulate blood, hair, and like little crunchy bits of skull are what really sell this effect. It's it's amazing. And what's crazy is that they also keep cutting to gore effects in the Frankenstein movie they're watching, which are also profoundly like grody effects. And so and sometimes you can't even quite tell which movie you're watching, because they'll go deep into that movie, like it'll fill the screen, which is, I can't tell if I like this or not, because he spends a lot of time showing the Beast of Frankenstein.
I will say that it did make me want to see Frankenstein Day of the Beast. Because
I think so too.
It looks vaguely Hammer-esque from what they show of it,
but also very indie. I mean, I think it's kind of neat that in that sense, it's cool that for no particular reason he's bringing a lot of attention to this movie. So that is the effect, and then the teenagers spot that, and then at some point, and he kills the see, I'm trying to get all of them up until the point that the alarm basically rings, when everybody knows that there's something up. The other one that he kills without anybody noticing is, the guy who runs the theater. And that is a cool effect. And even Julia, supposedly not a gorehound, she laughed at this effect, because the guy goes out for a smoke break and then gets his throat cut, and the guy and the killer holds his gloved hand over the guy's mouth, I guess to keep him from crying out, whatever. And so smoke billows out of the guy's lungs and out of the incision in his throat.
But again,
that was pretty brilliant.
Yeah, yes. No, it's a combo of smoke and then the rain making it colder, so there's more smoke
steam, vapor,
But again, he's one of those people. He's such a just jerky d-bag.
He is.
You're totally fine in some ways.
You think he's going to be okay, until he like sexually harasses Anna. Like, not, he could be worse, but he's pretty damn bad.
He's pretty bad.
He's just a grody jerk. Like, he's meant to be that person who is the first kill, because you want the catharsis is that guy can't buy it quick enough.
Right.
He's just he takes from he's taking the candy, and he's by the way, did you notice the cigarettes in the drawer?
No, what about them?
The Contenti cigarettes.
Oh no, I didn't.
They're like Marlboro looking kind of.
You get a lot of different kinds of cigarettes. I was hoping that didn't pay off. I was hoping that the specific brand thing would somehow play into something, or even just the cigarettes being there.
Well, it's the cameo without being a cameo, and I thought that was pretty good.
I guess so. But it would have been good also if she would have been like, "Oh, I can light a cigarette and burn I don't know, something."
Yeah, I did want since we go to the trouble of opening up the drawer and showing the stuff in there, it could have paid off in some way, which is fine. It doesn't.
Well, again, it paid off in it was just something I noticed, because I noticed weird stuff like
the appearance of the guy's name. Yes, indeed.
And that's why I was like, oh, thumbs up. That's a pretty good little like, hey, look.
Yeah.
I feel kind of bad spoiling that a little bit, because you kind of want people to notice on their own, but oh well. I just thought it was a cool, like, if you're gonna do something, that's kind of a cool trick.
There are certain brands of cigarettes that show up in the movies a lot, because they have like the same, Garbage Pail Kids fake cigarette brands that show up.
What was Cancer Man's brand?
Morley cigarettes, which actually show up in a lot of different movies. It's a made up brand, but God knows why. And Cancer Man smoked those cigarettes they were prop cigarettes that he had. They were herbal cigarettes. The benefit of them is that they kind of blazed in a way that a real cigarette really doesn't. It's not as interesting looking as these, which will leave this super long ash, and so the cigarettes on a movie set will often be, these sort of flaky herbal cigarettes. Anyway, okay, it is the first people to realize that something's wrong is our girl Angela, who is the spunky teen who came in with the two boys. She has been cheering her buddy on when he went down to talk to Brooke Shields, and now she notices that they haven't moved in a long time. And and it's at that point that they go down to investigate and they realize that they're dead. And then things start moving super fast because
Well,
when they start,
and also
yeah,
the girl, the other girl, Anna, is that her name?
Anna, yep.
She notices the blood on the
She,
handrail about the same time too.
well,
I
she,
feel like all that kind of starts to
yeah,
happen at the same time.
yeah, I'm trying to, she goes down to, because even though Mauricio is a jerkwad, she still wants to remind him to take his pills because he said, "Oh, I have an alarm clock set because I got to take some medication or another, whatever it is." And so the alarm goes off, and so she goes looking for him. And that's when, at first, she spots some blood, but she doesn't really register to her that there's blood on the railing. It's not really connecting for her. And so she goes back up to change out the film when it burns, which is one of these cool effects that you see in a lot of movies. And I don't think I've ever seen it actually happen in real life. I'm trying to
I've seen it
think.
happen at Weird Wednesday before.
Yeah, I mean, I have a vague memory of this, but I could just be talking myself into that. But yes, where where film gets stuck because it's either grungy or sticky or whatever. Regardless, it gets stuck in front of the lens. The lens burns it because it's a hot light, and so then the projectionist has to basically stop the projector, take the film out, use tape to cut the film back together again, and then start it up again. And this is this thing that you can do, and a really good projectionist can do this, as we can see, just in like a matter of a minute or two. And
Yeah.
And her having never done it before still can do it in a
right,
minute or two.
but she knows how to do it, and so when she's doing that, she doesn't notice the people screaming because she expects them to be booing, because she already set that up for us in some cleverly placed dialogue earlier. And it's only after, and she looks out very self-satisfied that she did all this, and then she notices that one of the
People are-
dudes is lying dead in the aisle, and
and
that's
and there's like all kinds of hell going. It's like all hell's broken loose at that point.
Although I wish you would have asked if there was any attention paid to, if I set this up right, will easily become an Alamo Drafthouse PSA
yes,
of all the teenagers talking and the old guy going,
Oh, you're right.
"Oh,"
That would be
like
brilliant.
it's
Yeah, we'll
very like he should
take you
cut
out.
it. He should cut it to. I really am curious because again, like you see those PSAs all the time, and if you're at
yeah.
Fantastic Fest, so I really as I was watching, I was like, oh, I wonder if
that's a
if
great
that's
idea.
how deliberate that is, because you can cut that easily, because there's a demons one as well, like it's that I've seen it a ton of times. If you talk that and it cuts to the demons like doing all the stuff in the theater, and I just, as I was watching, I was waiting to see which of the kills would make the best don't talk
Yes.
PSA, and it's probably the teens, because they're the ones who are being the most jerky about just like, we don't care who, we're just here, we're
The
drunk.
old man is getting up, going, "Shut up! Shut
Yeah,
up!"
I wanted to see the Draft House PSA cut of this movie, down to 30 seconds or less.
Oh my gosh, so funny. So yeah, it's funny to me how quickly the movie resolves, after this, because now it becomes a sort of battle for survival with just three characters left, which is to say Angela, Tomas, the boy, Anna, our final girl from beginning to end. Exactly, this is your girl. And them versus the guy, versus the
My
eye eater.
favorite bit of retaliation, and possibly the grossest thing in this whole movie, is that the projectionist, you just said her name and now I'm
Anna.
blanking on it.
Anna's the projectionist.
Anna stabs the killer in his eye,
Yes.
with a piece of broken glass.
Yeah.
And then he pulls it out, pulling his eyeball out with the process, and he proceeds to cut it out with the same piece of broken glass. And I have a very high tolerance for gore. It takes a lot, and I winced during that part.
Whoa!
I definitely did not see most of that scene.
Yeah, I can't blame you. That there were a couple times that were definitely like, oh man, you have gone above and beyond. But again, What's weird to me is, like I said before, I grew up, I've kind of gotten inured to some of this because there's some of it that is just like the kind of torture porny kind of movies that have come out, in the past decade or two. And they're just like, I'm shocking you, right? Like, I'm shocking you. Am I shocking you yet? Wow. Right. And I look at a lot of those movies and go, man, I watched all this crap in college.
Yeah.
And I'm not like, yes, that is a nice piece of gore you've done. Kudos, high five. But there's a way that it's done that feels very like, got you now, right?
Yeah.
That the kills in this didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
This is still a
and
fun...
that's why it's different. And I don't know, maybe it's just my perception, but I've seen a bunch of stuff that felt that just weird, almost kind of disingenuous. Like you're talking about, it's almost like an adult version of like, would you do this or that?
Right.
What was the most shocking thing I can say? And it feels like sometimes a director would just build on that as far as like, boo hoo hoo.
Well, it has a certain, like the distinction I would make, if, we've knocked Rob Zombie a lot, but I'm going to defend Rob Zombie for a second. I was thinking about Zombie's kills in his Halloween movies, and how they're very painful to watch, because Zombie, even though I bitch about him all the time because I don't like some of his sensibilities, I think he's really skillful at one particular thing, which is making you really worry about and feel bad for the people who are being killed. He's really good at that. In this movie, Maxi Contenti doesn't give a shit about that. He has no interest whatsoever in you spending time actually emotionally connecting, particularly with
that's
this stuff.
kind of also a bit of the Friday the 13th-ness of it all, and that this is a fun, it's a fun movie. Like it's a roller coaster ride, and as grotesque it kind of be, like it balances out that grotesqueness with like this theater of the absurd. Like even the fact that he is collecting eyeballs with an with an ice cream scoop to pickle them and eat them. Like, yes, that is revolting, but it's also kind of funny.
Yeah,
it's bizarre.
No, there's definitely some funny stuff. I will disagree that we didn't emotionally connect. I really connected with the kid. I felt so bad for that kid. I was like, oh my gosh, that poor kid. I just was so worried about him.
Well, and I felt really bad for Angela when
Angela
gets her head smashed in the projector, and that's really sad.
That was horrible. Oh my god, that was definitely overkill. I mean, really, was that necessary? Like, to keep going? But you know what was a great effect though was the projection of the bloody screen. Like the fact that it's projecting on the screen. I thought that was a neat effect.
I mean, I guess you might have answered your own question.
No,
like, yes. It was excessive.
There could have been all the blood without just it went on for like 2 minutes. I was like, oh my god, enough already. Jesus.
My only, like, I know it's movie logic thing that I had leveraged was watching it. And, as we've said, we don't know what you would do in a situation where there's an eyeball scooping killer after you. But I did keep going, grab that coat rack so you can keep it away.
See,
I just kept going like, grab the coat rack. Like, I can't get close enough to you.
I don't want to invite karmically to put me in a terrible situation. But personally, if someone was trying to murder me, I would murder them back.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what
we learned. I mean, that's the Friday the 13th.
I feel like that quote needs to go on a plaque somewhere.
But that's the Friday the 13th part when they're showing the thing from part 2. It's like, no, you just keep hacking. Or Rain goes, why don't they just keep shooting the person?
Well, Angela and Anna can be pretty damn stupid when they
when
they knock this guy out.
Yeah, they didn't like kill the crap out of him.
I mean, it's movie. I'm to
I know.
To everybody who's writing or directing a movie, it's that lot, like the leaps in logic make the movie an interesting slasher.
Yeah.
But when you've seen enough of them again, like I said, even just you have this thing that keeps him 6 to 8 feet away from you.
Yeah.
Use that.
And don't
I
leave
mean,
the
but
knife
that's part
next
of the
to him.
movie. I'm not knocking,
Yeah.
anything about the movie, but that's one of those ones, like watching it.
You're
I
like,
was
what?
"No,
Why?
grab the
No,
thing."
come on. You left the knife neck. What the? Haven't you
Yeah.
ever seen a horror movie? You run? No, I guess she doesn't usually run it though.
Well, they
Just
have
say you
seen
run
a
a
horror.
movie theater.
They have seen a horror movie. They were watching one.
I know
Yes,
exactly.
Right.
That's my point.
but they haven't
I do
seen
like
Halloween
the
apparently.
journey
Apparently.
as we're trying to escape the killer. It goes to all these like classic trope kind of places, but they're really interesting. So we go to the basement and there's sparks, just because that looks cool.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. I have no idea why those sparks are there, but they're awesome.
because that would be very dangerous. But again, it depends on, you might have, it's not a well kept. I mean, I guess it looks really great, but once you get into the basement, all the behind the scenes, so there's all the old seats that are stored down there.
Well, and apparently only 2 people work in the thing at a time, so it's not like there's a
Yeah.
lot of people. They're covering tickets, concessions, cleaning, managing, and obviously people
Yeah.
don't behave very well because there's so many issues. I love that the guy's like, yeah, I don't get paid enough for this.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't even care. Do whatever you want.
Oh, and that's I think anybody who's worked a job like that, like the graveyard shift of anything,
Yeah.
or the early, early. I've worked an early morning shift at a place. Like there is the going. Yeah, it's not.
Right.
You might start out caring,
Yeah,
and
like
then
he's
you
like,
realize like
you
no one
need
else
to go.
cares.
You didn't pay
Yeah.
for this movie. You need to go. And the guy's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. He's like, okay, whatever. I don't care.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I worked at this convenience store on the coast, and once you've reached your fill of people just being horrible or just not caring, like the level, anybody who's worked retail as well, the level of caring, you may start out with the best intentions, but once you've seen, squatters or who knows what people are doing in a theater, it's constantly in a theater like this, is constantly going to be kids making out, especially because the 90s. I don't know if that's, I mean, I'm old enough. I don't even know if that's the thing because, dark theater was like, that's why you went on a date a lot of times. Like sometimes it was to see a movie, but, you weren't at your parents' and it was dark and you could sit in the back and hope, make out. But that was I don't know, in our Netflix and chill world, maybe that's not even done as much. So it's certainly not pandemic wise, but
Well, if you live with your parents, you still can't necessarily Netflix and chill.
yeah, exactly. But once he's right in the fact that eventually you're just like, it's not worth.
Right. Exactly.
Like I'm not gonna fight. I can't fight City Hall on this. Like I don't not make the money from the ticket sales, especially when there's only 10 people. Like this was
exactly. Yeah.
This, the old guy being there, like this isn't a sold out, we have to turn people away. It's not really going to make any difference at the end of the day if that old guy stays and watches another movie.
Right.
And I just love that is portrayed so well. Like, even though that guy's a jerk, like he's totally right in that, there may have been a couple years ago when he started like, I kick people out because it's the principle of the thing. And then eventually once you work one of those jobs long enough, you're like, whatever. Yeah, I will take this box of chocolates because, but he's not. I know the owner. He's not counting.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a good question, actually, who the owner is. In fact,
I thought that the projectionist was also the owner, and that was.
Well, he might be. It's really not clear. He might very well be. He could
just
be
the way he
owner.
talks about it. It seemed like that.
He's been there for like 20 years. The lady at the box office knows. So it is possible that this is literally her dad's theater. So I don't know. I mean,
that's what I got the impression, or at least he runs.
You know what?
it,
I'm
even if
adopting
he doesn't own
your
it.
thought. That to me, that's where I'm gonna go in my head with this.
And that would also tie into the woman who's running the box office, who is a little bit older lady, and you would tend to keep like, oh well, she's been working here, like that's what she does. She works the box office, and that's what you do. Like that all kind of ties together. That was the impression I got. I could be wrong, and again, he may not even own the theater, but he might run the theater. He might own it. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of the plot, but I get the fact why
when they show up at the end with the cops, he's standing there, and a cop. Is there another person that seems to be kind of over him, or is it just him? I can't remember.
No, it's just the old guy and the cop. Yeah.
So it sure would seem like he owns it then.
Yeah.
This is a pretty small cast. I mean, I think
it sure is.
Things,
yeah.
But I like that about it. It feels very contained.
Yes.
like, and it's interesting to me to think about how the rest of the world, like in the microcosm of this movie theater, there is this like terrible event going on, but the outside is going on blissfully unaware that this is even happening. And I think there's something kind of chilling about that. Like I found myself projecting that because like often when I'm in like, you know, around other people, one of the things I think about is like how every person goes off and splits off into their own individual story, and you don't really know which genre that they walked into. And so, you know, something about this, like the smallness of this story really fit into my thought process about that.
Yeah, I thought about the same thing about as far as the fact that nobody knows what's going on inside this theater. You know, I thought about that too, and also even the fact that nobody knows what's going on in the 3 rows behind them. You know what I mean? Like when they're not being killed. Yeah, interesting.
Although I agree with you that it did seem to stretch credibility that like nobody yelled, or that you, if you're on the balcony, that you couldn't necessarily see the killer going around doing his work.
Right.
I mean, there is,
and I can understand if you're like so engrossed in the movie, but they're actually very focused on their friend. So the fact that they don't see the guy standing over the friend.
In fact, they talked shit about the movie through the whole. It's interesting to me. Hey, maybe that's why the killer is bumping them off, because you said that he's the director of the movie, because they talk shit about the movie. They're all like, this movie's terrible.
He's like, you didn't pay to watch my movie. You are like getting a hand job during my movie. You are talking shit about me. You're picking up a girl during my movie.
Right.
Watch my film, damn it.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
I mean, there is a slight bit of plausible deniability in the fact that all 3 of the teenagers are drunk.
Yes, that's true.
So
actually, the guy who didn't pay had already gone, so never mind. Yep. He starts off killing the poor old man who didn't do anything wrong, so I felt bad for that guy.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that guy. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, we finally get down to Anna and the kid, and it looks like the kid is gonna eat it. Anna gets slashed in the back, but what we know that it's just enough to knock her down. It probably hurts like the dickens, but it doesn't look like a fatal blow. But she may be down for the count. And he is closing on the kid on the stairs, and then Anna from behind with the rebar, straight through the chest for the old guy.
The killer is Anna in the theater with the rebar.
Yes,
exactly.
The old man, though, I want to go back to the second victim. I think he's the first victim. Yeah, he's the first victim because he's the one who gets killed in the theater. So he's the first victim, the old man. And it's not the old man who didn't pay. It's another old man who like the drunk teenagers fell on him. He's like having the worst day. That guy, poor thing. First these guys fall on him, and then he gets murdered while he's watching this movie. I felt so bad for him. But yes, the final girl is, aside from some foolish mistakes that she makes earlier that I think cost Angela her life in part, she does finally end up doing a good job, and the kid does a good job of surviving, but now they're traumatized for life for sure.
I mean, these are people in a movie, so I wouldn't be so sure about that. But yeah, and then the doors are opened and they're free. Very cool.
Anna also does a really great job of being a final girl, because when she tries to take care of business early on, she's really like, nope, we're gonna shut this down, we're gonna do this. Like she's
but when they're standing in the office and the guy's standing there with the eyeballs, that part annoyed me, because I was like, there's so many things they should be trying to do right now.
No, that's what I was talking about. Yeah. Grab the coat rack.
Or anything, or like I said, the cigarettes or whatever.
Sure,
all 3 of you just rush him. Something. But I guess they're just like, there's that whole fight or flight thing where you
again,
flight or freeze. They just froze.
That's what makes a movie. Like that's what makes it interesting. And B, we never can tell what we're gonna do until something happens. That's where you find out exactly what's gonna go on. So it's not my complaint isn't that would have made the movie better,
Oh no,
or
I wasn't
like, why
complaining
didn't
in
you
that
think
case
about
about the
that?
movie. I'm just saying this is the thing that you're yelling at the people on the screen. Come
But yeah,
on,
that's
do
the
something.
that is the, like, but that also makes for a good movie, because I think there's so many horror movies that do beg that the audience participation part is like, do the thing, run away, or grab the machete,
Yeah.
get in the car, grab the keys, all of that, all the
Yeah.
stuff you're thinking, like that level of thinking is what we, the audience, get to do.
Yeah.
That the people on screen have their own thoughts and actions and motivations that aren't ours. And so that's part of why it works. Even if you are like, no, do the thing, jump out
Yeah.
the window, grab the whatever. I mean,
He's
that's part of
behind
what makes
you.
it a horror
Don't
movie.
go
Yeah, yeah.
upstairs. What's wrong with you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's part of what
Yeah, I
makes it
gotcha.
the horror movie. So you chalk it up when you've seen enough, and and part of it is kind of homage to that in a way too. Like, hey, I'm making a horror movie. Let's just do this, and that I like that actually.
All right. So we should we should definitely get to our final thoughts and then to our endorsements. And by the way, it's been really great to be back to talk about this standalone movie after being gone for, I think a month. I think we took a month off for the summer, and it's been nice. But let's get our final thoughts on
Oh,
the
you,
last
you know
matinee.
what? This is a good summer horror movie.
Yeah, it is.
In
It really is.
retrospect, it has that feel of,
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's a weekend, but it could just as easily be a Tuesday night where it's the summer and you and your friends are gonna go to the movies, because what else are you gonna do?
Well, and you said
So
that you were watching Friday 13th Part 3, you and Drew, and this just fits in with that kind of thing just perfectly,
yeah,
So yeah. All right. So yeah, Tony, Julia, Drew. Tony, wow. I mean, final thoughts on the last matinee. What tell
well,
us.
I'm glad that you did the interview where I go, hey, this is a
Yeah.
cool person. Like, that was just random. I just happened to look at Twitter at that point in time. And it's
Yeah.
like, hey, look, cool. And because I try to keep up with as many filmmakers as I meet, or friends of mine who are artists. So if they're making an album, I try to keep up with that. But I'm not always successful. There's just so much to keep track of, right? So I try to look out for what other filmmaker friends of mine are doing. And so seeing that, like, oh wait, he's got a new movie out, well, I need to see that. But it was really cool to be able to do that, and that it turned out so well. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I thought all the parts that were homage to other movies were great, and it tells, it's not just a gag to gag to gag thing, although that's part of it. It still gives you interesting characters that do all the things a horror movie is supposed to do. And the effects look great. All the practical effects were really well done. So while I think, if you are a gore hound and a horror movie cinephile, like most, at least three of us are, I guess,
Yeah.
and Drew and Jamie and I watching Friday the 13th Part 3, like, you will, see kind of where things are going. But the idea of taking a kind of giallo aesthetic, updating it, and turning it into a slasher, like a true slasher, full of all of the kind of tropes of that, is kind of neat. Although, again, I mentioned it before, but I really do at one point want to do In Fabric, because
Oh yeah.
that
Yeah.
one is,
And it seems like a
the
much
point of
more
it is giallo,
heady,
like,
but it seems like a much more heady homage
oh yeah.
than this, for sure.
Well, it's different. Like, the point of that movie is it kind of pokes fun, and also is, don't we all enjoy these movies? And I
Yeah.
like that. And this is a slasher by way of that kind of flavor. It's like you sprinkled a little bit of that on a slasher movie. And I'm a sucker for, I mean, I love the theater. I can only imagine if I had a theater I had access to, like the kid in the movie, if I wouldn't be hiding out in the theater all the time like this kid. Unfortunately for me, when I was growing up, the closest movie theater was like 45 minutes away. But if a movie theater was a bus ride away, or in a place that has good public transportation, or within walking distance, I would
Yeah.
I would have been there all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
I try to, pre-pandemic, I tried to be there as much as possible anyway, at the draft house, or wherever. So yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It was cool that, again, cool people are doing cool movies. It's neat to have that connection. But regardless, if I didn't know the director, I would still think this was a super fun movie, and it's really neat to see people just keep doing cool stuff.
Julia, what about you? Final thoughts, Last Matinee.
Well, yeah. So I think we talked about most of what everything I really have to say, which is that yeah, like I said, there's some clever things about it. There's some interesting stuff. If you like gore, it's well done. I just don't, so it's not my jam. But
Sure.
but I enjoyed the parts that weren't the gore parts. So anyway, but yeah, I think yeah, if you're a fan of that kind of film, then you will enjoy it.
Yeah. Drew, what about you?
I had a really good time with this movie. I think it's like Tony was saying, it replicates that old school slasher movie feel while still being very much its own thing. I will be interested if this filmmaker I like this put this movie maker on my radar. Like if he does some other movies, I will definitely check them out. So like, which is kind of weird saying, because like I feel a little weird knowing that like Tony, that there's kind of a personal connection, and I hope nobody thinks that that's somehow coloring my response, because like I legitimately, although I think anybody who has listened to this podcast knows that if I don't like something, I'm pretty straight up about not liking it. But I legitimately had a really good time with this. And I think if you do like that sort of over the top gore effects, this has a lot to offer. Just, be forewarned if you're squeamish about eyeball stuff the way some people are. If that gives you pause, this might not be the movie for you.
Right. Great. Wow. And I guess that leaves me. So I'm just really glad that this is one of the, I hear about a lot of movies, the promotional people reach out and say, hey, do you want to look at this? Do you want to talk to the director or whatever? It came out to be a happy accident that Tony had a connection here. And I really encourage you to check out the video for Send More Gasoline, which is obviously, as we've been using as our theme music for like years. But that it was a total coincidence. I really enjoyed this. So that was cool. All right, let's get our endorsements. Whatever you wanna whatever that you've been watching, listening to, what have you. So Tony, what do you got going on?
Several things actually. I can't remember if I endorsed. I guess it was a month ago, so I can't remember if I endorsed the Magnetic Monster on which is on Amazon. Which is this atomic age horror thing that has some science and some spurious science, as science fiction does, but I think the kind of some of the sense of dread and just the what is the world coming to in the atomic age kind of feeling of it, I thought was really interesting. So Magnetic Monster, for Sonny Chiba passed Sonny Chiba passed away this week, and my first Sonny Chiba movie that I ever saw was a movie called Shogun's Ninja. This is before I knew Sonny Chiba as Sonny Chiba, the writ large, right? It cashed in on the ninja craze of the 80s, and it was either like Cinemax or Kung Fu Theater that I saw it on. But I want to say, since the nature of the movie, that it was a premium cable thing, because I used to stay with my stepbrothers in northern Mississippi, and we would stay up late watching all manner of movies. And Shogun's Ninja was this cool, it's really cool. I'd forgotten, like I finally found a good Blu-ray. It took me years to find it, by the way. And sorry to be long-winded, but this is just like, was part of my movie DNA. It took me forever to find it because it's a Japanese movie, not a Shaw Brothers movie. It wasn't Hong Kong. It wasn't like traditional. So I kept like seeing like, oh, well, it's not Five Elements Ninja. It's its own thing. When I finally found it, I bought this movie probably 4 or 5 times because there's all manner of pan and scan versions and such. But it's neat because it has, you know, all kinds of ninjas. It's got samurai action. It's got kung fu because our hero goes to China for a while. He comes back fighting swordsmen with kung fu. He learns ninjutsu. It's got a crazy 80s score. And that, like, I watched that again and was like, wow, you know, I just really still enjoy that. And finally, I bought a ticket to Japan Cuts online edition this year, and I've been slowly watching movies here and there, but I caught Hiroko the Goblin, and boy, is it just this very, you know, used a lot of kind of Raimi style cam, you know, moving a camera fast and moving it all over. Very Evil Dead 2. It's its own J-horror feel, but there's a lot of homage to Western horror movies that if you're listening to this podcast, and it's one that I think I remember the name. I've seen stills from it. Probably I could have rented it at Vulcan or I Love Video, and I don't know how I missed this movie because I knew the title and everything, but this was the first time I'd actually seen it, like, not just clips or little tiny, you know, stills. And it's cool because as far as I know, you can still rent it. We should post the link. But Hiroko the Goblin, you know, Japan Cuts is cool because you see a lot of, you can, you know, it's online film festival, so you can catch a bunch of different films. There's a lot of melancholy kind of stuff, but I really enjoyed that movie, and I think it's like, last time I checked, it was like $10 to rent. I bought the pass for the whole online festival because I think they do cool stuff, and I just love world cinema. So it's pretty neat. I really dug that movie, and you know, if you're able to check it out, however you can, and it was a nice restoration too. Like, it looked great. So I like promoting things you can, you know, pay for the festival, you know, pay the filmmakers, etc. So this was in their classics section of this year's Japan Cuts. So yeah.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much. Julia, do you have anything? I mean, I know that you and I have been to the movies a lot lately, but
Yeah, so we have the AMC A-list membership, and so we have been going to movies like crazy and we go during the day when it's not very crowded, and we have masks that if there's anybody sitting within, like, you know, 10 feet of us, we'll wear a mask for sure. Or if it's just pretty crowded, but a lot of times it's just not very crowded at all. But like you said, it's not as bad here. So and so we've seen 3 movies in the last week or in the last like 2 weeks that I loved. Plus I have a Netflix thing. So the first one was Respect, which was about Aretha Franklin. It's really great film if you enjoy, you know, that kind of music, or just biopics or anything, or just any part of Jennifer Hudson, whatever, you know. Very, very fun movie. You know, sad in a lot of ways because she had a lot of tragedy in her life, but also really neat. But and then today we watched Reminiscence with Hugh Jackman, and that was really nice and creepy and interesting. But my favorite is Free Guy. Free Guy was so good. It was so good. I was really surprised. I loved it as much as I did. I really, really loved Free Guy, and my youngest child said it's now their favorite movie, or new favorite. So that was really, really fun. Ryan Reynolds. It's neat looking. The effects are awesome. It's funny. It's heartwarming. Ryan Reynolds is great. There's so many cameos, really fun cameos. So that was really, really fun. And then the last thing is on Netflix, they have this series. I don't know what the overarching series is called, but it's like the movies that made us, and then they have the toys that made us, and they have the holidays movies that made us. I don't know if it's just the things that made us, whatever, but anyway, but the movies that made us has been really fun. It's just a series of documentaries about movies from like the 80s and 90s and 70s in some cases, and that's a really, really fun series if you're just looking for something to just have on that will just make you smile.
Cool. That is good. I like it.
Thank you. Drew, what about you?
Oh man, so many things. Preeminently, I have for whatever reason, I don't know what possessed me, but I have gone into this like deep dive into the film back catalog of Full Moon Studios, which is for those who are uninitiated, what was a low budget film studio founded by Charles Band in the late 80s, and they kind of dominated the genre market for these direct to video B movies. And I got a subscription to there's a lot of their stuff on Tubi, but I also got a subscription to their Amazon Prime add-on channel to find the ones that I can't. So I've watched the entire Subspecies series, which was their vampire series. I've watched all of the Trancers movies, not all of the Puppet Master movies. I tend to be stopping when we get out of the 90s, but it's been really interesting. You know, so I can't say that all of the movies are great. A lot of them are schlocky, but you know, some of them are, you see, you know, some really clever movies that do fun stuff on like low budgets. Like I really, you know, in particular enjoyed watching the first 3 Puppet Master movies because there's just so much inventiveness in them. And I've also found, going back, and they made several superhero movies, and it's interesting to see superhero movies from a point where they weren't like these giant mega budgeted, you know, with the exception of like maybe the Batman franchise. Like a lot of superhero movies were still B movies. And
what's an example of a Full Moon superhero movie?
Well, they have Dr. Mordred, which actually had its origins, and it was almost a Doctor Strange movie. Yes. And then there's, of course, Mandroid and its somewhat sequel, Invisible. And actually, Charles Band was going to do a team up movie he never did it, but he kept threatening to do it, where he was going to bring a bunch of his characters together, and we never saw it. But like, he basically was going to do the Avengers before the low rent Avengers before Marvel Studios is even a twinkle in Kevin Feige's eye. So these movies are fun, and they have a sort of, you know, like one of the things I really like to see is that I, more often than not, I will like to see something that has some idiosyncrasies and has like the filmmaker's obsession in them. And a lot of the times with big studio movies, you don't necessarily see that. So, you know, seeing these sort of ultra low budget genre picks, you do get to really see that a lot of the time. So I find these to be really interesting kind of artifacts of a time period where, you know, without video stores, these movies wouldn't have existed. So it's I don't know, it's been fascinating. The other thing that I have been enjoying that's more recent and probably a lot more critically acclaimed is Reservation Dogs, which is a sitcom that is about.
Oh man, it's so good.
I've heard about this. Yeah,
it's set on in a Native American reservation in Oklahoma, and it's, you know, largely indigenous cast, and Taika Waititi is one of the producers on it, but it's also got a lot of, you know, native writers and directors involved with it, and it's just really funny, and it's also has like a lot of heart. But more than that, you know, I think that one of the things that I enjoy most about it is the specificness of it. Like, it feels really Oklahoma. Like if you've ever spent any time in Oklahoma, like this nails the feel of Oklahoma really well. Like, and I don't know that people who aren't from, you know, the Bible Belt will really quite get what I'm talking about specifically. But if you are, I think you'll be like, yeah, they freaking nailed it. So the specific nature of that is something I greatly enjoy. One final thing, and then I'm gonna leave you to ponder why I have been watching so many full moon movies. I have recently launched a Patreon, which is sort of a cross between like a Kickstarter and Facebook. It's an ongoing, it's not like a crowdfund that has like an ongoing, it's not like the Indiegogo thing where I have like X amount of time. It's an ongoing thing. But so like you can come on and you can become a monthly backer for even just as low as $1. But what you're doing is you're helping me continue to do what I do, and what you're getting in return, like if you've ever been curious about how comics are made, I'm putting up a lot of production art, both publicly and then patron only. And so you're seeing a lot of like scripts, you're seeing art, you're seeing things developing really, and you can get in on a lot of cool stuff. And I've only had it for a couple of weeks. I don't have that many followers, but unlike Indiegogo, this is it's not a sprint, it's a marathon sort of thing. But I am going to post the link tomorrow on our Facebook group, and if you have even a passing interest in comics, I think you will get something out of this.
Very cool. Thank you very much. I have one thing, and that is that I went to see The Night House, and I'll make this super short, but I came out telling everybody it is scary. Jump scare, clutch my chest, scary. It reminded me of The Changeling. It was a really scary ghost story, so I totally recommend it. We watched, it stars Rebecca Hall. We watched today The Awakening, which is another ghost story movie starring Rebecca Hall. That one's good, and it's exactly as predictable. It takes all the turns you expect it to take. This is not like that. The Night House is full of surprises, and it's scary. So that's all I'll say about that. Wow, thank you everybody. Tony, Julia, Drew, wonderful recommendations. It's really great to hear your voices. I'm really glad that we are back, and I believe that we're back next week with some Val Lewton music movies. So I don't know if we're starting with Cat People or what, but it's going to be cool. So thanks, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Night.
Good night.
Night.